We're going to have a look at place value, rounding off, and ordering and comparing whole numbers. Let's first have a look at place value. We've got our 10,000s column there. We've got our thousands column, our hundreds column, our tens, and our units. Right, so if we have a look at some numbers, let's have a look at 7. 7 only has one digit, so if you are asked what is the place value of this number, you would say 7 units. If we have a look at 62, 62 has 6 tens and 2 units. So if you are asked how many tens are there in the number 62, there would be 60 tens. If you are asked how many units are there in this number, altogether there would actually be 62 units, because 6 tens adds up to 60 units. So 60 units plus 2 units is 62 units. But if you are asked what is the place value of the 2 in the number 62, your answer will be 2 units. If you are asked what is the place value of the 6 in 62, your answer will be 6 tens. Let's have a look at another number. 309. In this number 309, we have 9 units, 0 tens, and 3 hundreds. So if you are asked what is the place value of the 9 in this number, your answer would be 9 units. If you are asked what is the place value of the 0 in this number, your answer will be 0 tens. If you are asked what is the place value of the 3 in this number, 309, your answer would be 3 hundreds. And now if you are asked how many units are there in the number 309, your answer will be 309 units. We've got 30 tens in this number, because we've got the place value of the 0 is 0 tens, but altogether we've got 30 tens because we've got 3 hundreds, and 300 is equal to 30 times 10, or 30 tens. And then we've got 3 hundreds in this number. Right, if we have a look at the number 6,751, we've got 1 unit, 5 tens, 7 hundreds, and 6 thousands. So we have got the place value of the 1 in this number is 1 unit. The place value of the 5 is 5 tens. The place value of the 7 is 5 hundreds. And the place value of the 6 is 6 thousands. We have got 6,751 units in this entire number. We have got 675 tens in this number. We have got 67 hundreds in this number, and we've got 6,000. We've got 6 thousands in this number. Right, if we have a look at the number 80,447, we've got 7 units, 4 tens, 4 hundreds, 0 thousands, and 8 ten thousands. The place value of the 7 is 7 units. The place value of the 4 is 4 tens. The place value of the next 4 is 4 hundreds. The place value of the 0 is 0 thousands, and the place value of the 8 is 8 ten thousands. We have got 80,447 80,444 units. Sorry, we've got 80,447 units in this entire number. We have got 8,044 tens in this number. We have got 804 hundreds in this number. We have got 80 thousands in this number. And we've got 8 10,000s in this number. We know that all multiples of 5 end in either a 5 or a 10. So we need to see either a 0 or a 5 at the end of this number. But we need to also decide whether this number 162 is closest to 160, which we know is a multiple of 5, or 165, which is also a multiple of 5. And this number 162 falls in between. So how do we do that? Well, we look at our unit and we say that 2, is that 2 closest to 0 or is it closest to 5? And if this unit is 0, 1, or 2, then that number will be closest to 0. But if that unit is 3 or 4, it will be closest to 5. So because we've got 2 as a unit in the number 162, 160 will be the closest number, so the closest multiple of 5. So if we were to round off the number 162 to the nearest 5 or the nearest multiple of 5, our answer will be 160. If we have a look at the number 39, we know that the multiples of 5 closest to 39 would be 35 and there's 39 in the middle and 40. Now we need to decide whether 39 is closest to 40 or closest to 5. So now when we're working above 5, if this unit is 6, 7, or 8, I beg your pardon, if this unit is 6 or 7, then the closest digit would be 5. And if this digit is 8 or 9, then the closest unit would be the next highest 10. So because we've got 35 and 40 on either side of 39, we know that because 9 falls in this category, it is greater, so we are obviously going to have to move to 40. 40 will be our next multiple of 5. So rounding off 39 to the nearest 5 or the nearest multiple of 5 will be 40. If we have a look at the number 703, we know that 700 and 705 fall on either side of 703. So we need to decide, is 703 closer to 705 or 700? Because our unit there is 3, our answer will be 705. 705 is closer to 703 than it is to 700. If we look at one more example, 854, we know that 850 and 855 fall on either side of 854. So now we need to decide, is 854 closer to 855 or 850? And it's very clear that 854 is closer to 855 because it's only 1 digit away, whereas it's 4 digits away from 850. So 855 would be rounding off the number 854 to the nearest 5. When we are rounding off to the nearest 10, we need to understand that rounding off to the nearest 10 is the same as rounding off to the nearest multiple of 10. So when we have a look at the number 82, if we are to round the number 82 off to the nearest 10 or multiple of 10, we need to have a look at the multiples of 10 on either side of 82. So 82 lies in between 80 and 90, because 80 and 90 are our multiples of 10, and 82 lies in the middle. So now we need to have a look at which of these multiples of 10 82 is closest to. Well, we can see here that 80 and 82 have a difference of 2, and the difference between 82 and 90 is 8. So 82 rounded off to the nearest 10 will give us an answer of 80, because 82 is much closer to 80 than it is to 90. Right, let's have a look at the number 307. 307 lies in between the multiples of 10, 300 and 310. So if we have a look at the difference between 300 and 307, we see that the difference is 7, and the difference between 307 excuse me, and 310 is 3. So rounding the number 307 off to the nearest 10 will give us an answer of 310. If we have a look at the number 985, 985 lies in between the multiples of 10, 980 and 990. Now, the difference between 980 and 985 is 5, and the difference between 985 and 990 is also 5. So when we're looking at an example such as this, we need to understand a different rule, that when you are rounding off to the nearest 10, so we're looking at the 8th place value, the 10, we've got 8 tens at the moment in this number 985. We need to then have a look at the place value to the right of our tens, which is our units, and we see that we have 5 units there. So when we are rounding off to the nearest 10, and our unit is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we're going to round our 10. Our 10 is going to become a 9, so it's going to round up to 9. And if our unit is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then our 10, our 8, is going to stay the same. It's not going to change. But obviously, the unit will always become a 0 because we're rounding off to the nearest 10, and a 10 will always have a 0 at the end. So because in this example, 985, because we've got a 5 in the units column, and that falls into the category 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then our 8 is going to become a 9. Right, so rounding 985 off to the nearest 10 is going to give us an answer of 990. So if we have a look at the number 199, 199 lies in between the multiples of 10, 190 and 200. So we've got 199 there in the middle. And if we have a look at the difference between these two numbers, 190 and 199, we see that there's a difference of 9, and the difference between 199 and 200 is just 1. So this one is quite obvious because we know just by looking at it that 199 is much closer to 200 than 199 is to 190. So rounding the number 199 off to the nearest 10 will give us an answer of 200. When we are rounding off to the nearest 100, in the same way as when we're rounding off to the nearest 10, we are actually rounding off to the nearest multiple of 100 in this case. So if we have a look at the number 3062, we need to have a look at the multiples of 100 that lie on either side of 3062. So we know that we've got 3000 on one side of 62 and 3100 on the other side. So when we are working out the nearest 100, we need to underline our 100 place value. So there's our 100 place value. We've got 0 hundreds in this number 3000. We've also got 0 hundreds in this number 3062. And we've got 100 in this number 3100. So this is obviously the number that we are working with. And I would like to, again, we look at the place value to the right of the place value that we are rounding off to. So we are rounding off to the nearest 100. So we need to have a look at our tens. So let's look at our tens, which is 6 in this number 3062. So 3062, just like what we explained in the previous video, if our 10 is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then our unit, our place value to the left, so in this case our 100, will round up by 1 digit and become a 1. So from a 0 to a 1 is just 1 digit, and that's because our 10 is a 6. If our 10 was a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then our place value, our 100, would stay the same. It wouldn't change at all. Right, so rounding the number 3062 off to the nearest 100 will give us an answer of 3100. Let's have a look at the number 9127. We've got 9100 and 9200 on either side of this number. So 9127 in the middle. And let's have a look. We've got, there's our hundreds. And now we need to consider our tens as well in this number. So because our 10, the place value of our 10 is a 2, the value of our tens is a 2, we've got 2 tens here, and that means that our hundreds is actually going to stay the same. So our hundreds is going to stay 1. It's not going to round up to a 2 because of this 2 here. If this 10 was a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then yes, it would round to 9,200. But because it is a 2, we are not going to round it up. It's going to stay as 9,100 because 9,127 is closer to 9,100 than it is to 9,200 because the difference there is 27 and the difference here is much bigger. Right, let's have a look at the number 8,904. We've got 8,900 and 9,000 on either side of 8904. So we can see already that 8,900 is much closer to 8,904 is much closer to 8,900 than it is to 9,000. So therefore, because there's only a difference of 4 here, and there would therefore be a difference of 96 here. So rounding the number 8,904 off to the nearest 100 will give us an answer of 8,900. Right, let's look at one more example. 3,771. Well, we've got 3,700 and 3,800 on either side of 3,771. We can have a look at our 71 and see, or we can have a look at our 771 and see whether 771 is closer to 700 or closer to 800. And we can see that there would be a smaller difference between 3,771 and 3,800, and therefore rounding the number 3,771 off to the nearest hundred will give us an answer of 3,800. We can also have a look at this by underlining our tens, because we're rounding off to our hundreds. So we look at our tens, and because our 10 is a 7, we are going to round our hundreds up by one digit to become an 8. We are now going to round the number 349,298 off to firstly the nearest 1,000, then the nearest 10,000, and then the nearest 100,000. So let's first consider rounding this number off to the nearest 1,000. Right, what we need to do is we need to underline the value of our 1,000. We've got 9 thousands in this number. So because I've now underlined the thousands column, I need to have a look at the number to the right, which is our hundreds. We now need to consider, is 298 is 9,298 closer to 9,000, or is it closer to 10,000? And in this case, we know that 9,298 is closer to 9,000. It only has a difference between 9,000 and 9,298 of 298. And also, because we know that our 100, the place value of our 100 is a 2, we've got 2 hundreds in this number, we know that our 9 is actually going to stay the same, with obviously these zeros at the end. So rounding the number 349,298 off to the nearest 1,000 will give us an answer of 349,000. And that is because this 2 is less than 5, and also because 9,298 is closer to 9,000 than it is to 10,000. Right. Let's just rub these out so that we have space for our 10,000s. Let's now round this number off to the nearest 10,000, or multiple of 10,000. So we need to underline our 10,000s. We've got 40 thousands in this number, or 4 10,000s. So we can then have a look at our thousands column, and we have 9 thousands in this number, which means that our place value that we are looking at, that we are looking to round off, our 10,000s is actually going to become one digit greater. So our 4 is going to become a 5, because the place value to the right of our 10,000s column is 9. So if this 9, if the number in this place value column was 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, this 4 would become a 5. And that is because 49,298 is closer to 50,000 than it is to 40,000. So rounding the number 349,298 off to the nearest 10,000 will give us an answer of 350,000. Right. let's now have a look at our hundred thousands. So if we want to round this number off to the nearest 100,000, we need to see that we currently have 300,000s, and we want to see whether this number is going to round to 300,000 or 400,000. So because our 10,000 place value, we've got a 4 there, we've got 4 10,000s, we know that this 3 is not going to round up, it's going to stay the same. And if we look at it a different way, we can say that 349,298 is closer to 300,000 than it is to 400,000. So rounding this number off to the nearest 100,000 will give us an answer of 300,000. We are going to have a look at the number 892,285. We are going to have a look at the place value of this number, as well as units, tens, hundreds, and thousands that are in this number. Right, so let's first look at our units. If we are asked what is the place value of our 5 in this number? Your answer would therefore be, the place value of the 5 is 5 units. Right. Now, in a different way, we could be asked, how many units are there in the number 892,285? And our answer would actually be, there are 892,285 units in this entire number. So the place value of our 5, what is the value of our 5 in this number? It's 5 units, because then we are looking at that particular column. There are 5 units in this number. Or the place value of our 5 is 5 units. But altogether in this whole number, we actually have 892,285 units. And the reason for that is because in the number 8, our 8 here has a place value that is 8 tens. That is the place value of our 8. 8 tens. And in 8 tens, we have got 80 units. Because if you count 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 80 times, you will end up with 80. And in the same way, in the number 200, because this 2 is actually 200s, we have got 200 units. And we have got 2,000 units in 2000s. We've got 90,000 units in 90,000. We've got 800,000 units in 800,000. So altogether, if we were to add all those values together, we get an answer of, 892,285 units. Right. If we now have a look at our tens. So if we are asked, what is the value of the 8 on the right? So the 8 on the right means the 8 furthest to the right. So we're not yet considering this 8. We're looking at this 8. What is the value of the 8 on the right? Our answer would be, the value of the 8 on the right is 8 tens. All right. A different question that they could ask is, what is the difference between the value of the 8 on the left and the value of the 8 on the right? So the value of the 8 on our left is 800,000. So that's 800,000. And the difference means that we are minusing. And the value of this 8 here, the 8 on the right, is 80, or 8 tens. So we can then work that out, and then we get our answer. So 800,000 minus 80 to find the difference. We need to borrow. Oh, we don't need to cross that one out. So that one will be 10. So we've got 0 minus 0 is 0. 10 minus 8 is 2. And then we've got a few 9s because we can put in our placeholders. And then we've got 7. Right, because we were minusing. So our answer here would be 799,920. Right. So when we are asked such questions, we need to be very careful as to whether they are asking us how many tens there are in the number, or what is the place value of our particular numbers, so 8 or whatever else. So the place value of our 8 on the right is 8 tens, or 80. We would write it out as 8 tens. The place value of our 8 on the left is 800 thousands. So we would say 800 thousands. Right. If we are asked to find how many tens there are in this whole number, basically it would be everything except for our units, because our units do not contain any tens, any whole tens at least. So our answer, if we are asked to find how many tens there are in the number 892,285, there would therefore be 89228 tens in this number. So it is everything except for our units, because in this place value here we've got 8 tens, so there's our 8 tens. In 200 we've got 20 tens, so there's our 20 tens. It's in the tens column now, so it's 20. Then we've got in 2000 we've got 200 tens, which is why it's in the hundreds column now. In 90,000 we have got 9,000 tens, and in 800,000 we have got 80 tens. So that would be your answer if the question was how many tens are there in this entire number. Right, let's now go to the 2. What is the place value of the 2 on the right in this number? The place value of this 2 is 2 hundredths. The place value of the 2 on the left is 2 thousandths. So again, a question that they could ask is, what is the difference between the value of the 2 on the left and the value of the 2 on the right? What you do then is you say, well, the value of the 2 on the left is 200. They could also ask, what is the sum of the value of the 2 on the left and the value of the 2 on the right? So let's do that. The sum of the value of the 2 on the left, which is 2000, plus the value of the 2 on the right, which is 2 hundredths, is equal to 2,200. Right. And if we were asked how many hundreds are there in this number, again it would be everything except for it would be everything before the hundreds column. So your answer would be 8922. So 8,922 hundreds in this number, because there are no full tens in there are no full hundreds in any of our tens or any of our units. So our tens and our units don't make up a full hundred, so therefore we don't actually include it in our answer. So how many hundreds are there in this number? There are 8,922 hundreds. And how many, let's use a different color, how many thousands how many thousands are there in our number 892,285? There are 892 thousands, because it will be everything before and including our thousands column, because there are no full thousands in hundreds, tens, or units. Right, so now we can have a look at our 9. Right, what is the place value of our 9? The place value of our 9 is 9 10,000s. Right, and how many 10,000s are there in this number? It would be the 10,000s column and everything before. So there would be 89 10,000s in this number. When we are ordering or comparing numbers, all we need to do is make sure that we line them up in the correct place value. So we line them up so that we line the numbers up so that their place values are matching. So if we have the number 3495, and the numbers 3495, 3359, 4359, 4495, 3498. What we can do quite easily now is order them, let's say, in ascending order. Let's remember that ascending order is going from smallest to biggest, because if you are ascending a mountain, you go from the lowest point of the mountain to the highest point of the mountain. So we're going to start with our smallest numbers. So we've got 3 3s in our thousands column. So we know that those are going to be our smaller ones. So we then have a look at the next place value, our hundreds, and we see that there are 2 4s there, but there is a 3. So we know that this number is going to be the first number when we are ordering, because it is the smallest number. We then have a look at these 2 numbers, and we need to see which of those are smaller. We look at the tens column. So we've got a 9 there and a 9 there, which means that we need to have a look at our units. So there's a 5 there and there's an 8 there. So we know that this number is going to be next, because that's smaller than this number. Right, now we have a look at our 4s. So we've got 4,000s in both of these numbers. Then we go to our hundreds. We see that we've got 300s in that number and 400s in that number. So therefore we know that this number will be next, because it is smaller than this number. Right, let's have a look at some other numbers. Let's have a look at 9989, 889, 9889, 8999, and 899. Right, so it becomes quite tricky when we're working with all kind of the similar sort of digits, but if you are given these in a horizontal linear line, it is a lot more difficult to compare them than when you line them up like this in your place values. So what I would like you to do first is put in your placeholders. So whenever there isn't a digit in that particular place value, then we just put a 0, because that won't change the value of our numbers. It will just help us to compare them. So we can see that we've got 9, 9, and an 8, and the other 2 are zeros. So if we want to order these numbers in descending order, which means from biggest to smallest, so we're going down the mountain. If you descend the mountain, you're going from the highest point to the lowest point of the mountain. So we're going to start with our biggest numbers. So we've obviously got 9 and a 9 there, which is bigger than our 8 and our zeros. So let's look at these two 9s, our hundreds, so that's in our thousands column. And in our hundreds column, we've got a 9 and an 8. So we know that this number is our biggest number. And then will come our 9,889. Right, then we can see that our 8,999 will be the next number in our sequence, because we've got 8 thousands in this number, whereas here we've got 0,000. So that will be our third number. Right, so now because we've got zeros in our thousands column with these two numbers, we need to consider the next place value. So we look at our hundreds. There are both 8s in our hundreds, so we need to look at our tens. And we have got 8 tens in this number and 9 tens in this number. So we know that this number is bigger than that number. So this is our fourth number in our sequence, and this is our fifth number.